Welcome back. In a bold diplomatic move, France will now recognize Palestine as a state. The announcement from French President Emmanuel Macron comes amid growing anger over the humanitarian food crisis in Gaza. In a statement posted to X on Thursday, Macron writes, "The urgent priority today is to end the war in Gaza and to bring relief to the civilian population. Peace is possible." The move makes France the biggest and the most powerful country in Europe to recognize Palestine as a state. NBC News correspondent Matt Bradley joins us from Tel Aviv with the latest. Matt, good morning. Just put in context here the significance of this decision and tell us how the U.S. is responding.
Yeah, it's a great question, Savannah. I mean, we've already heard from the U.S. They dismissed this. Marco Rubio said the same thing. He was, not a fan. And, this is bucking a trend in the West. We're seeing France for the first time saying they will recognize a Palestinian state. So that is significant. But for the rest of the world, this is something that is normal. More than 100 countries throughout the world have already recognized a Palestinian state. It's recognized by the United Nations General Assembly. So this is not something that is all that much of a paradigm shift in that regard. But the fact is, for the Western world, this is new, it's novel, and it might have the effect of getting other countries to sign on to the same. The thing is, recognizing a Palestinian state is not the same as having a Palestinian state and actually having it run, having diplomacy with it. That's a totally different thing and a much more complicated effort.
Matt, in addition to what we're seeing from civilians on the ground, people who live in Gaza, who were born there, news outlets, including AP and Reuters, they're issuing this joint statement. This was just yesterday, expressing concern for journalists on the ground in Gaza. They said here that they were increasingly unable to feed themselves and their families. What more can you tell us about the situation on the ground when it comes to hunger, to starvation, to malnutrition? What is the status of aid getting in?
Yeah, and I mean, NBC wasn't on that list, but I have to tell you that our own teams in the Gaza Strip are suffering as well. There are no, special dispensations for foreign journalists or people who work for foreign news organizations. Everything you see that we provide on our air is shot by our teams in the Gaza Strip. And those people are suffering the same fate as the population there. So it really is up to news organizations to try to defend their people in the Gaza Strip. It is a very, very difficult situation. And our teams there, I know that they have been pushing and getting news out of the Gaza Strip in a tireless way, risking their lives and suffering so much in the same way that the rest of the population in Gaza has been suffering.
Matt, while this is all going on, a breakthrough on a ceasefire deal, I mean, it just does not seem to be happening, despite the Trump administration saying they could get this done. Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff said yesterday, in fact, the U.S. is cutting short these ceasefire talks and this trip that they're on right now, bringing that negotiating team home from Qatar. What is behind that decision? What do we know about how those conversations were going?
Yeah, well, he said that it doesn't look as though Hamas has any appetite to actually make a ceasefire deal. What he said was actually startlingly final. It wasn't just dismissing those negotiations and pulling back diplomats for that one round. Because remember, I've talked to you, Savannah, about these rounds of negotiations for the past 2 years. We've been seeing them constantly, over and over again. Almost always they end in crushing disappointment. There have been 2 successful negotiations for a ceasefire ever since those October 7th attacks. But the really damning thing that we heard from Witkoff's statement was that he said that the U.S. is going to have to come up with alternative ways to release those hostages in the Gaza Strip. So this is not a man who sounds like he's prepared to go back to negotiations like we've been seeing round after round. If you remember, Savannah, just 2 weeks ago, this was all, so optimistic. Trump, Netanyahu, everybody was saying we're so close to a deal. The Palestinian side was saying the same thing. Now, it looks like we're back to square one. No deal, no negotiations, pessimism all around.
All right, Matt, thank you very much for your reporting here.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.